G'day everyone, welcome back to the Toon podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best podcast for all things Newcastle United. Here for a Nottingham Forest preview, and I am joined by Jamie Martin. Jamie, back again, mate. Second time, which means you're officially a friend of the show. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good to be back and good to be a friend of the podcast as well. Brilliant podcast. I am a Forest fan, as you probably now know.
Yes.
but I do enjoy tuning in and hearing about Newcastle as well, which is another club that, my friend goes to uni in Newcastle. So I do try and keep an eye on them every now and then, see how they're doing.
And we are sort of slowly morphing into the same club as well. So it's probably good that you get up to speed with everything that's happening with us. So, mate, from the last time we spoke, a lot has happened. I think there was, I think your PSR hearing hadn't even taken place yet. You didn't know the outcome of that. Didn't probably get the result you wanted there, but it wasn't as bad as maybe what it could have been. Survived, stayed in the league, which was obviously the priority for last season, and now you've turned into prime Barcelona, mate. What? Probably actually, and forgot to mention the most important bit. You've finally seen the light and have decided to move to our beautiful country next year, which is unbelievable as well.
Yeah, it's been so much, which is great for someone from a media perspective who wants to write about Forest, because it seems like actually I went from one point being like, okay, what do I write about this week, to now being like, do I actually even have enough time to write about everything? And it's great. You know, what's going on at Forest at the moment is fantastic, because the noise around the club last year was so negative. And a lot of it, unfortunately, self-imposed. You know, we have to take responsibility for that, because we are a football club and there is rules you have to follow whether you like them or not. And I'm definitely critical of the way that football is governed in this country, because I think that there's so much money in the Premier League, and there's clubs that are facing, you know, bankruptcy and administration, which just shouldn't happen in the modern day. We should help them out, but that's a different subject. But you know, I think that regardless of what I think about the FA or whoever's running football at the moment and the way they run it, Forest did break the rules. We paid the price. Luckily, we stayed up, as you say, and I'm grateful we did, because, you know, again, a lot of my mental health rests on football, as I'm sure it does for everyone. It does for everyone. And at the moment, I'm really happy because we're third in the Premier League, and I'm not going overboard with the excitement, because there is some really tough games coming up, including on Sunday against Newcastle. You know, a team that have been excellent against the top opponents in the division. You know, Man City getting that draw, beating Arsenal. So they're not a team that are gonna roll over like West Ham did, because West Ham are really poor. So Forest do have a bigger challenge on their plate, and they've got, you know, a team that's managed by a really good coach in Eddie Howe. So in terms of football, we've got a big challenge coming up, and I still think even now I'd take 13th in the Premier League. And people say, "Oh, I can't believe you're saying that. We're third," but we're only a quarter of the way through the season. So football-wise, it's going really good. And obviously, as you say, I have seen the light. So I'll be moving to Australia on the 1st of June, 2024. Yes. I won't arrive till the 3rd of June, you know, because you're that far away. But
yeah, you'll and then once you sort of understand the daylight savings thing, which we're kind of going through now, where I think there's 4 or 5 different time zones in the one country, which is crazy as well. So you'll be in the thick of that, where you'll be going, mate. You won't know if it's bloody 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You'll be all over the place. So just with Forest now, I think you've probably undersold yourself a little bit. Like, beating Liverpool at Anfield's no mean feat. Like that's a very rare occurrence for even the best sides as well. And even draws with Brighton and Chelsea, who are 2 teams probably thinking they're top 6 teams as well. So out of 10 games, like, I know you say you've got some harder fixtures coming up, but I don't think you can discount the fixtures that you've had. Like, there's some very impressive results in there. So I guess from the last time we spoke to where we are now, like what's changed? Like, I'm pretty sure Steve Cooper was still in charge the last time we spoke, and there was obviously some really goodwill between him and the fans and stuff like that. And in the end, it just sort of become untenable. Seems probably too harsh of a word, but it wasn't working out, and the club had to cut the cord no matter how good the relationship was and stuff like that. But what's probably the biggest thing that's changed?
Well, first of all, I'm a bit superstitious, so my comments about tough performances coming up, I just don't want to overpraise in case anything.
Yeah,
but
Eddie Howe's
definitely
right.
the results.
I know. Yeah, Eddie Howe, he plays this card very often in the media, and it seems like the generic answer, but it's the 100% right. There's no easy games in the Premier League.
No.
Like, you can't just sort of roll up and think, oh, thank God we've got this team now. Like, we probably need it. We need an easy. Like, we've had a few tough fixtures. We need an easy one. There's no such thing anymore. Like, every game's a hard. If you win 3 points, you've earned 3 points against a very good team. So
of course you haven't, and that's the win against Liverpool was massive for us. And the thing that's changed this season is that, well, you look at any Nuno side that's had success, which, by the way, the only team, okay, fine, long-term success we don't know yet because we've had Nuno for a year or maybe just under a year. But short-term success-wise, I would say that Nuno is doing really well. So any team that he's had that success, so the only team is Spurs that hasn't had that. The one thing that is consistent throughout it all is the fact that he likes a smaller squad. He wants to, he took over mid-season. He was essentially, parachuted in. Steve Cooper had been sacked. He's got to build a rapport with the fans. He's got to build a squad that's capable of staying up in the Premier League. He's got to motivate a team of players that seem so low on confidence. He's got a really tough fixture schedule coming up. I've got obviously the Newcastle on Boxing Day one and the Man United and New Year's were just freak results, which obviously was so crucial in us staying up. But even with those results, Nuno still had to build that rapport with the fans, which I think has only come now. So the thing that I think that he needed most to succeed was actually just a pre-season and just to start the season with it being him as manager. He's got the control. He's got the recruitment behind him. And these are his players. And, the recruitment that Forest have done cannot go understated because, the players that Forest have bought. I mean, Ola Aina, by the way, for me, is in the top 3 fullbacks in the league at the moment. And that's not me because I don't do the overreaction and going crazy for things. I don't do that. I think that he's in the top 3 fullbacks in the league. Milenkovic, the centre-back, potentially, one up there. I wouldn't say the top 3, but he's up there. And these are the players that have got, like Forest back line cost them a combined something like £25 million or 30 million. I mean, which is just ridiculous. And they've got the second best defensive record in the league. So, there is obviously elements of people saying that Forest got lucky with certain things. But honestly, I think this is a time where I'll step back and say, bias aside, Forest have earned this and they are playing good football to get these results.
Yeah. And like, even with Nuno as well, I think you're probably overestimating him. I mean, he's been in the stands for the last 3 games and they've won the last 3 games. So probably don't even need him anymore, really. It looks like the players are doing their own thing. They'll take it from here. Thanks for sort of straightening us up a little bit, but we'll take it from here. But it seems like a really obvious thing to say, but it's so true with clubs with financial sort of handbrakes, I guess, that can't just go and that they can't afford to spend 40 million on a player and have it not work. They just don't have the PSR sort of wiggle room for that to happen like the big clubs do. So you've got to box clever and you've got to really spend your money. And I know it's this Moneyball cliche gets thrown around a whole lot, but you have to. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. You've got to find the diamond, like what Brighton have done essentially, where you've got to find them diamonds in the rough and get them and coach them and develop them to a point where you can sell them for a big profit and you can you keep your club sustainable as well, which no doubt that the Brennan Johnson transfer probably did that for Forest as well, where they've sort of made a little bit of money, which has allowed them to sort of dig a bit deeper into their scouting network and find these players that really no one's probably ever heard of. Like, they're not household names or anything like that, but they've come in and like they've fired him in a third after 10 games.
I mean, yeah, I don't want big names at Forest. I want names that are going to fight for the shirt and they're going to put in a performance every week. So, if they cost £5 million and they're from, I don't know, wherever in the world, then that's fine with me. I just want players that play for the shirt. And I think there's a massive obsession with, these big names that you see in the media all the time. And it's like, but this is the job of a scouting department. They are there to find you players and to be savvy and to be shrewd with their recruitment and bring in players you've never heard of, because that's the whole point of it. And I've heard of Nikola Milenkovic before. I'm a Football Manager player, so of course, we've heard of him.
Fine.
Yeah, of course. But you look at the players that Forest have brought in. So not only have they recruited well, but they, as you say, they've got diamonds in the rough, and they've actually coached players really, really well. Callum Hudson-Odoi, for example, off the back of a loan to Leverkusen that really didn't work out. His morale is probably mental well-being. I can't imagine being at the greatest place it's ever been. He's not playing football. He joins Forest for £4 or £5 million, and first season gets 8 goals, however many assists. He's being coached well. Elanga, cast out by Man United. He's being coached well. There's a lot of players that were considered cast-offs in Forest team that they've actually transformed into not only first-team players, but into players that are very good in the Premier League. Look at Chris Wood. People were thinking, Chris Wood's he's done now. He's had a couple of good years at Burnley. That's all he's good for. Nuno's got the best out of him now. And Chris Wood at 32, 33 is in his prime. This is the best we've seen Chris Wood. Yeah,
it is funny. Like, there's always the, I can't believe they let Chris Wood go, like Newcastle fans and stuff. Like, don't pretend it's... No one ever said this when they sold into Forest. No one could believe that Forest had bought him for the price they paid for him when he left Newcastle. Like, don't pretend that everyone was like, I can't believe we kept Callum Wilson and let Chris Wood go. Like, it's
a good deal for I still think it was a good deal for Newcastle.
It was a great deal. It's mad. I can't understand the people, like, it's on Twitter and stuff like that every time he scores, which has been a lot this year. But it's just, I can't believe we let him go. He wasn't playing like this when we sold it, and it was a fantastic price. Like, I think we bought him for about 25 million, but we had to because we had injuries and we needed something. We triggered his release clause just to get that body in straight away. Like, he wasn't worth the amount that we paid for him. But then I don't think he was worth the amount that you guys paid for him either. He's probably less than that. But, like, look at him now. He's worth more than that because he's been coached and developed. Chris Wood, for me,
has been worth everything we paid and double, because he's kept us in the league. When Awoniyi got injured, we thought, who's going to score our goals? And it turns out that Chris Wood was that man the whole time. And I think from a Newcastle perspective, whenever you see a player go to another team from yours and then goes and does well, obviously you sit back and you go, oh, why did we do that? Why did we do that? But you just have to look at it as in, Newcastle, you've played Champions League football since then. You've got Alexander Isak. When Callum Wilson's fit, he is a good provider of goals, but the issue is when he's fit. So I understand the frustration there from Newcastle fans, but I honestly don't think you can be too angry at the situation. Forest are playing a system that really suits Chris Wood. I don't think Newcastle do. That's just how it goes. Footballers perform different in different clubs. You just go on with it and just be like, fair enough. We got the money, done.
Yeah. And I think what was great for us, and obviously is great for you guys, is not just him as a player, but him as a person as well. Like, he's such a solid bloke, and you might there's not many Kiwis around the world in professional sports who come across as dickheads. They're always humble, down to earth, like really, really good people, and the type of people that you want around your dressing room and around your club and stuff like that. So I know you pay for the on-field stuff, but I don't think you can put a price on the off-field stuff, and so that's been a really big focus for us in our recruitment as well. We've pretty much gone with the no dickhead policy at Newcastle too. So you might be a good player, but unless you're a good person, you probably won't be coming to our club, which I love. I'd rather a worse player and a better person than the better person, and I mean the better player and the shitter person. So Elliot Anderson as well, mate. Like that. So that was the stinger. I don't think anyone foreshadowed him leaving, but at the same time, I don't think anyone really realised how big of a hole we were in come the end of June as well. And it's fine to say we need to sell Callum Wilson, we need to sell Miguel Almiron and all these, but you need someone to buy them. That's the problem, and no one like no one's going to buy them for the prices that we needed, especially to get us out of that hole as well. And he was the one. He did sting, and even at the same time, like I said it at the time, and I still stand by it now. And I don't get me wrong, I love seeing him. He seems to be a really key player in your side at the moment, which is great to see. But the way things were looking with us, he was probably our sixth choice midfielder. Like we've got Bruno, Joel Litton, Tonali, Longstaff, Lewis Smiley really come along last year as a result of all the injuries and stuff like that. I know Elliot Anderson didn't get a fair crack because he had a really bad injury as well, but he was probably going to be the sixth midfielder. So at the time, whilst you never want to see your academy players go, that's the system. The system set up for you to cash in on your academy players. And yeah, although no one wanted to see him go, like at the end of the day, he was our sixth choice midfielder, and we got a pretty good price for him. We didn't anticipate the price that we had to pay for Odysseus Vlachodimos on the return as well. But Elliot Anderson, I think most Newcastle fans still do keep an eye on him because he does hold a special place for us, being the local boy and stuff like that. But how have you seen his start for Nottingham Forest?
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. You know, I really, really cherish every moment that he plays for us because it almost makes me feel like, you know, when we lost our academy players, you know, and obviously we lost a couple because they weren't up to standard, you know, like Joe Worrell, unfortunately, wasn't at the level we needed him to be. and that's just a reality of football. You know, and like obviously we lost Brennan Johnson as well, who's smashing it, and we all knew he would. You know, I think it's really sad when fan bases get on the back of a player that's left and sort of cast them off, or you know, or don't kind of give them the credit they deserve for the contribution they made for the club just because they've left to go to another Premier League club. I think that's really sad, and it's a really weak way of looking at things, which I don't share that view at all. But with Elliot, I think that, you know, in a deeper midfield role, I don't think you get the best out of him. And one weakness I definitely say Forest have or had was that when Gibbs White isn't there, who replaces him? And I was really concerned by that. We've got Elliot Anderson. And it's again, like I said with Chris Wood, it's like, you know, to you guys, probably wasn't so great, you know, even though some fans will look back and go, look how well he's doing now. You'll do the same with Elliot Anderson, but he means more to you because he's an academy product. So
yeah,
you've got that sentimentality. So he was not good enough to play for Newcastle at the time. That's just the reality of it. But in our system and the fact we've got a platform to give him a chance because we are a side that is in a different position to Newcastle in terms of trajectory in the Premier League. So, of course, naturally, Elliot Anderson is going to get the opportunity to play for us and he's going to get the opportunity to develop and look better. So he's been excellent for us, especially the last couple of games. His footwork's brilliant. You know, just in general, his vision, you know, his delivery of crosses and passes in really key moments is just, it's impressive. It's what you want from a midfielder, especially attacking midfielders. So I'm really impressed with him. It's a gutting one for you because again, we've been there and, you know, it's not a nice position to be in. And this is my concern again about the Premier League PSR rules that I spoke about earlier, because they are incentivizing big six clubs taking away the academy products that clubs lower down in the division have spent years developing and years investing in. So I know it's money in Forest and Newcastle's bank and whatever from the players you sell, but this is an unfortunate reality of PSR that I think needs to be looked at. But Elliot's really doing well at Forest, and I was gutted for you. You know, even though he's coming to Forest, I was thinking we've been there. You know, but he's smashing.
We know what
you're
going through here, mate.
Yeah, we know what you're going through, but he's smashing it.
Yeah, it's. Do you think, in a way, there was clearly some kind of handshake deal, under the table deal done to buy Elliot Anderson for that price? Because when the sort of reported figures had come through, I don't think anyone could believe that we actually sold him for that much. And then the kicker underneath was you guys got yourselves out of a bit of a, you might have been in a little bit of a pickle yourself. So we done the Vlachodimos deal separate as well to try and help you guys out to get you out of the trouble that you were in as well. So do you think this was kind of the payback for the John Joe Shelby deal?
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
yeah. Sorry about
look,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
we'll take
Cheers,
one
mate.
for
Yeah,
you.
I was going to say Chris Wood. Thank you, John. Just
Yeah.
shelving now. Look, mate, I'm sure there was something there. I'm sure. I don't know for a fact, so I can't say.
Yeah.
Yes. But it would say that everything indicates to that, and Aston Villa and Chelsea look like they've done the same thing as well. But again, I don't know. And if you want my honest answer, clubs, are the rules are getting stricter, so clubs are becoming more savvy and using loopholes
More
to get
creative.
around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you know what? If those loopholes exist, that is not the fault of the clubs. That's not the fault of the clubs. And the only people complaining about clubs doing these deals are the big six clubs, which shocks me because on a yearly basis they spend hundreds of millions. You look at Man United, how much they spent on a Ten Hag, £400 million or something like that. Forest have never spent that in the entirety of their existence, pretty much. So, and you're out here telling me that we should be, look at these guys spending, £10 million over the. It's just like, what? Are you that out of touch with football that you can't see what's going on here? But clubs did a savvy deal by the looks of it, and I think probably Forest got the better end, but as a result, Newcastle didn't get a points deduction. So,
this is what you got to weigh up on the surface. Yeah, you did get the better deal. Like I think some of the figures I've seen for Vlachodimos was like 20 million or something like that. Which we don't know the exact amount. We never know. They're always undisclosed fees and stuff, but it's in and around that figure for a keeper who I think they tried to sell him before the transfer window closed. Like they tried to on-sell him again before the transfer window closed because he was never going to be a part of it. But it's that, or like you said, it's a 10-point deduction because we're in the PSR hole. So I'm sure most people would go, look, if we started minus 10, if the club's ambition, which they've been publicly saying is Europe this season, you can't start with minus 10. Like you may as well throw Europe out the window straight away. So it was something like, I do think there needs to be, there never will be, but how did Newcastle end up 60 million in the hole coming into June? Like what the hell? Like because they didn't buy anyone in January. So it's not like this crept up on them and someone's gone, oh shit. We're got to find 60 million in the next 2 weeks or we're going to start with 10 points deduction. They knew about this. So what happened? What fell over that they thought was going to happen that made them 60 million in the hole? Because they would have known about this for at least 6 months. So hopefully the tale will come out one day. What actually happened and how did they get to the situation where they had to sell Elliot Anderson and Kuba Mente, who's the player in the position that Newcastle have been crying out for since the takeover. So on the game though, mate, you shared a very interesting thing on Twitter this week that I found absolutely fascinating, but I shouldn't have because teams at the top of the table have much better stats than the teams mid-table and underneath the table. Sure. But for 10 games, Nottingham Forest have only been behind for 76 minutes out of 10 games is mind-boggling. Like that is an absolutely amazing stat, it worked out to be about 8% of the season that Forest have been behind, which is crazy. Newcastle have been behind for 33% of the time elapsed this season. So that's how far apart the two teams have been. Now, when you say that and there's 4 points and what is it? I think that you guys are third, we're 11th. So, eight places and 4 points of difference. But in terms of, like, we've been no good this season. We've had a couple of more encouraging performances from maybe the Man City game. Everton was a bit better, but couldn't get a goal. Chelsea, I thought were a bit better as well, although we didn't. Arsenal was a big game, and in the League Cup beating Chelsea as well, which was good and probably gave us the impetus to kick onto that Arsenal game. But 8% of the season, Nottingham Forest have been behind, mate. That is crazy.
Cast-offs. I'm just going to keep saying cast-offs because Moreno wasn't wanted by Villa. Aina wasn't wanted by Fulham years ago. We've got them, Milenkovic and Murillo. I mean, the thing is, everyone works hard for each other in Forest team, which is why they are so enjoyable to watch this season because Matt Sells has been a good. By the way, Matt Sells used to be, of
yes,
course.
I forgot about that guy.
You can't forget about Matt Sells. You know, when we signed him, people were going, "Haha, he used to be a fourth choice keeper at Newcastle."
Yeah.
And I think, so he's another cast off. So how many cast offs? James Ward-Prowse wasn't wanted by West Ham. He's loaned to Forest. So in fact, a lot of these teams that gave away these players at some point would probably love to have them back. Would love to. Look at West Ham now. Look at them now. They are awful, dreadful. And the thing with Forest is the defence, they just look so calm. Even on set pieces where we really struggled last year, we really, really struggled. I don't think we've conceded from a corner yet this season. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think we've conceded from a corner yet. And last year, I think, I can't remember the exact number. It was something, it was above 30% of our goals were from set pieces that we conceded. Wow. So we conceded a lot of our goals just from these set pieces. So, again, Nuno's had his time to work with the players. We've ironed out those really key issues, such as set pieces, and we've just put the hard work in, because I think people look at pre-season too much and they go, "Oh God, you know, we lost to this random team in Spain, or we drew with Millwall."
Yeah. I hate
and then you go,
like
"Oh
that."
God!" It's just like every single year, it's just like, "Oh my!" You could have won the Premier League, and people will still be like, "Yeah, but pre-season, man,
don't
you know,
trust
we
them.
just
they've had a bad. Oh, they've lost it. Yeah, they lost to them."
It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. But as I say, Forest, you know, the defensive record only second to Liverpool, and the only team to beat Liverpool this year is Forest, which is the first few games you'd look and you go, maybe Forest getting a little bit lucky, because you obviously as a neutral, you're going to think Forest got a bit lucky, whatever. But then you see them carrying on that defensive record and you go, hey, something's not right here. Forest are actually doing pretty well. So, you know, you've got to give them the credit. Defensively, Milenkovic was the huge addition, probably the greatest addition that we've made in a while. Brilliant.
So, having said that, and I'm sure there are a few Newcastle fans who do keep an eye on the Nottingham Forest games, just to twist the Elliot Anderson and Chris Wood knife a little bit further. I don't think they have a Matt Sales knife, so you don't have to worry about that part of it. But for those of you, or for those of us who haven't watched Forest much this season, what can we expect to see on Sunday? Well, I think it's Monday morning our time, but Sunday morning in the UK.
You can expect quick breakthroughs. It's one thing that Forest do really well, is that you won't see them necessarily have the ball all the time. Against West Ham, they were dominant, so they did have more possession, but you won't see them have the ball more, most of the time. You will see them win the ball back in midfield and start the build-up, you know, and it'll probably be passed to the fullbacks down the wing, and and trying to get, again, those really quick counter-attacks, because I don't think Forest are one of those teams that slowly build up the pitch and, you know, want it to be a process. They are literally there and they're going to go, right, put all your men up if you want, do it. Like Leicester, they had a really high press. All that Forest did was kick it to halfway with Chris Wood, take it on his chest, play on the winger runs, he makes the run, you cross and score. Yeah. So Forest are, again, a quick counter-attacking team that will catch you off guard. They're really, really the midfield is really hard-working. So, and they've got to be more hard-working against Newcastle, of course, because you've got the likes of Tonali, Joelinton, Bruno. So, you know, really, really physical presences. So they're going to have to be, you know, on their game. And I have a feeling there could be a change of formation, but I don't know. But we'll have to wait and see. It'll be a really, really interesting game. But even in the cup game, you know, you kind of got a glimpse of what Forest were trying to offer, and that wasn't Forest's strongest team. So high energy, high intensity, counter-attacking football, and Chris Wood.
Yeah, Chris Wood. Who's probably, I think you've probably mentioned him already, but who's probably a key player we should be looking out for that's not Chris Wood?
Milenkovic, for sure.
I thought you were going to say.
Milenkovic, you've got to look for. But, you know, another player that shouldn't go under the radar is Ryan Yates, because he doesn't have a fancy name and he isn't from a fancy part of the world. He's from Lincolnshire, you know, and he's just a normal local lad who supports Forest. But like you've got Longstaff, we've got Yates, and he's a hard worker. So he'll be winning a lot of free kicks. So be prepared to smash your TV when he's constantly going down, because he does win. He wins free kicks and he gets into the mind of the opponents, which is I think what you want in a midfielder. Well, I think you put yourself on mute, mate. Wait.
Can you hear me?
I've got you now.
Hang on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you, mate. Yeah. Oh, you've gone again. What's his mic doing to him? No.
Have you got a prediction or anything like that for the weekend?
A prediction. The prediction I'd make for the weekend, optimistic 1-1.
I think 1-1, and I think Elliot Anderson's going to break his Premier League drought, which he should have done.
Really? Do you think he's going to score?
Already in his career, but I think it always happens that that Newcastle players always come back to haunt. Chris Wood did it last year as well, so I think it's going to be Elliot Anderson's turn. But yeah, all right, Jamie, we'll wrap it up, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. We'll keep in touch, mate. We'll get you back on for the return leg fixture, whatever you want to call it, later on in the season.
I've just returned from Australia as well when I'm there, so I might even, I don't know, I'll try and get a beer with you at some point in the future.
Perfect. All right, mate. Well, thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks, Jamie.
Cheers.